Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. And yes, the Keep On Listening Awards, KOLA, are here. The year's best for 2024. Now, unlike the Avoid Like Death Awards, which are more or less self-determinative, in other words, we all know what the worst recordings are, and they are objectively so. This particular segment of the award season requires a touch more subjectivity, just a little bit. These are all great recordings, but the truth is there are many great recordings. And so we have to be selective. And this year particularly, I wanted to emphasize interesting and unusual repertoire for collectors, or, things that really round out the serious collection. I mean, for people who really collect hardcore, we just love it, and we get things that are kind of strange or off the beaten path. But there's also some, I don't want to ignore the basic repertoire. I really don't. But there's just so much of that, tons and tons and tons of it. And so I really tried to stress things that you might miss in normal circumstances, but that will really enrich your listening experience going forward into 2025. I'm always of two minds about award things, because there's always a political aspect. I mean, I know this when I was running the Cannes Classical Awards, for example, the political aspect was front and foremost, because the award itself was sponsored by the Reed organization, the Reed Midem Convention. Midem is Marché International du Disque et Édition Musicale. Big convention in Cannes, France, at the Palais des Festivals, where they have the Cannes Film Festival, except this is in the winter when nobody is there. And it was a football, a political football. The sponsor, Reed was a very, very kind sponsor, actually, to do it for as many years as they did. But when we started that award, I'll never forget the concept we critics had, was we're all there anyway, because we're covering the convention and giving it some publicity and whatnot. And so we thought it made sense to poll all of the critics from all of the international music magazines that were there and come up with an award that really, really represented a consensus. And we thought that was a great concept. And it worked for about 10 or 12 years. It really did. But eventually, the person who originally got it started at the organization said, listen, this is what's going to happen. She said, because we've been through this before with the TV awards. She said, it's going to go wonderfully for the first few years. Then people are going to notice it, and everyone's going to want to take it over. And they're going to screw up the whole thing, and it's going to end. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, that's absolutely what happened, to a T. But one of the last years, to just show you how, uninteresting the musical aspect was, we had some fabulous, fabulous guest artists showing up. Yehudi Menuhin was there. He was near the end of his life. He could barely talk or move, but he was there. And Henri Dutilleux and people like that. But the guest of honor at the ceremony, the award ceremony, was the Prince Consort of Denmark. It wasn't even the Queen of Denmark or the whoever was running Denmark. It was the person who was married to the person who was the big deal in Denmark. And I, being an American, just a peasant, basically, I have a total loathsome of hereditary royalty. A loathing, of hereditary royalty. It's not that I dislike them. They may be very nice people, but I just don't think they should be afforded any more consideration than any other normal person. I find the concept just terrifying, and kind of childish. And so the Prince Consort of Denmark was there, and we were all instructed to, stand when he entered. It reminded me of that Bugs Bunny cartoon, arise, sirloin of beef, boom, the scepter thing. Anyway, so we were waiting for him to show up. Turned out he was in the bathroom, and spending quite a bit of time in the bathroom. And so we're all sitting there waiting for him to come out of the bathroom, at which point we were going to arise like his loyal subjects and get on with the award. And oh my goodness, I was kind of happy when the whole thing ended. Frankly, it was just ridiculous. Anyway, it didn't really end right away. What happened was they replaced the jury, that is all of us, me particularly as the head of the thing, and the people who had been running it in an open and honest way with, hacks, political hacks, some of them working for some other magazines who had participated, who would basically do what the person in the organization wanted them to do for the purpose of attracting more business to the convention, which was just like, ugh, ridiculous. Anyway, so it still exists in a form, but not the way it was. And ever since then, and we always knew the Grammys were fixed because they involved block voting, from whatever people were in whatever regional part of Grammy was up for an award. Like all the Chicago people always voted for Chicago and Schulte. And because classical music was something that nobody listens to, and you don't have to actually have heard the recordings to vote for them, then the most enthusiastic people pushing could just write to all of the other members of NARAS, which is the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, the members of whom vote for the Grammys, and say to them, "Oh, vote for this," and they would, and so that would win a Grammy. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff like that going on. It's unfortunately the quality of stuff is usually very high, so the criteria by which awards are chosen doesn't make that much difference. But here, at least. In good old classics today, I still talk to my fellow critics. I do. And I ask them for their opinions. And then there's my opinions. And then there's the conclusion. What the heck is that flying by? Anyway, which is, of course, an absolutely objective fact. These may not be all of the greatest recordings of 2024. How could they be? There are only 10 of them. But they are great recordings of 2024. So that was a long way of getting back to the original point. And let's get to the list. Actually, I need to find the list because I don't even have it set up here. I can't believe that. Oh, I'm just so silly. God, where did I put it? Hang on, folks. It's always so much fun when we get to this part of the year because I know that you're all going to be rushing out to purchase these recordings. And some of these, I have to say, a couple of them at least, are going to be rather challenging. I mean, there's no question about that. So as we open my list, there it is, the KOLAs. Here's the KOLA list. It's not KOLA with a C, it's KOLA with a K, and there it is. And we don't have scarves, unfortunately. I mean, the scarves really do it, don't they? We have such a good time with the scarf thing, but unfortunately, this is just about wonderful recordings. 10 absolutely fabulous recordings that you will die if you don't hear. So we begin with 3 recordings that celebrate the gift that keeps on giving. That is Czech music. I mean, Czech music is just like totally cool and amazing. I actually have most of them sitting here, so I have show and tell objects for most of these awards. Some of them I've filed away and probably will never find again, even though I love them. That's just the nature of this, isn't it? Anyway, first, Jan Novák, Concertos on Supraphon. Remember this from way back at the beginning? It was a long time ago, it seems. 3 concertos by an absolute master of contemporary Czech music, a follower, more or less, of Martinu, a gorgeous, fun, neoclassical, brilliant, beautiful, songful. It's all the wonderful things that Czech music has are on this disc. The Concentus Biilugus, or whatever that thing was called, I could never pronounce it, for piano, 4 hands, and string orchestra. Choreae Vernales, the most beautiful flute concerto you've ever heard in your life. It's for strings, flute, harp, and Celesta. Wow, is it gorgeous? And the concerto for 2 pianos and orchestra. A wonderful, gorgeous recording on Supraphon. And all these are listed below this, the video, the description of this video. So don't worry if you don't capture all of this. Absolutely fabulous on Supraphon. It was one of the high points of the year. I've listened to it about 30 billion times since, and it only gets better. I mean, which is what you want in one of the greatest recordings of the year. Then we have, let's see. Oh, you can find it here. It's probably the bottom, of course. It's always the one on the bottom. The Dvořák Symphony Cycle, it uses 2 conductors on SWR music, but has some really, really fine performances. And the ones with Pietari Inkinen are some of the best unquestionably. We've got the Deutsche Radio Philharmonie Saarbrücken Kaiserslautern, not one of the greatest orchestras in the world, but very, very good, very experienced. It's a radio symphony. They play all kinds of music. And this is, I think, one of the best of the batch. It has Symphony Number 6 and 3 overtures, one of which is quite well known, the Hussite, and 2 of which are not. The overture to Selma, Sedlák, and the overture to Vanda. Wonderful pieces, absolutely wonderful, big pieces, beautifully developed pieces. Dvořák, the symphonist, at his best, really, in all of these works. And a lot of them are unknown. And Dvořák's symphonies before Number 7 are relatively unknown. So we've got Novak as a composer probably a lot of you haven't heard of, Jan Novak, and Dvořák's Sixth Symphony, a glorious work, one of his major masterpieces. Everybody agrees, but nobody listens, which is terrible. And these 3 overtures on SWR Music, simply splendid, absolutely superb. So give this series a listen. You will not be sorry. They've been awfully reliably good. And then, last but not least, this was really interesting. On the Pentatone label, it was Czech songs sung by Magdalena Kožená, who's phenomenal, with the Czech Philharmonic conducted by her hubby, Simon Rattle. Yeah, it's one of the best Simon Rattle records I've heard. Of course, he's just an accompanist in this. But beautiful, beautiful songs by Martinu, Dvořák, Hans Krasa, and Pavel Haas. An extraordinary collection of both known and lesser-known songs on the Pentatone label. And, oh, it was so beautiful. Such a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to enjoy, pieces that, again, that you never would ordinarily. And this is one of those songs, it's a collection. So it's for Magdalena Kožená fans. Magdalena Kožená fans. I got stuck in my vowels got trapped somehow. But, really, a rare and unusual song recital that you're not going to encounter very frequently, in terms of repertoire, and with a major singer, major people doing it. Unfortunately, in this day and age, something like this should be flogged like crazy and promoted, and everyone in the world should have a chance to hear it. It should be on the radio every 5 minutes. It's not. I mean, maybe, I don't know, I'm not listening to the radio, but I don't think it is. I haven't seen any mention of it really since it came out, and that's what happens these days. They just toss them out and forget about them. And so it falls to us humble critics to tell everybody once again what the best things are. This was unquestionably a labor of love from everybody, and it's absolutely glorious. So we've got 3 Czech things to start off, and I think that was really, I don't know, I love Czech music, I mean, generally speaking, but really, it's such a wonderful cultural heritage, and there's still stuff to find that we don't know, which is always marvelous. And I wish there were some people other than Naxos. I mean, Naxos is wonderful, don't get me wrong, but there's so much American music that we still need to find, and it doesn't get any kind of push. But this year we did the Czechs, and that was really just terrific. So then we have 3 major boxed sets or editions, ongoing series that were completed. In the past year, which is a big deal. Perhaps first and foremost among them, at least a as good as anything else out there, was Bridges' George Crumb edition. George Crumb passed away, which was terribly sad. The edition has, I believe, 21 volumes. I have here, I think this was the last one, the 21st, which contains his processional from 1983, Chronos Kryptos, his last major work from 2020, and his Sonata for Solo Cello of 1955. What an amazing journey this has been. It's taken some decades to complete. It had the participation of Crumb, and it had the participation of, well, in an indirect way, me! Yes, me! Because on this one, we have Starchild, his largest work for speaking choirs and lots of orchestras and bell ringers, and it's for a parable for soprano, antiphonal children's voices, male speaking choir, bell ringers, and large orchestra. Boy, is it cool. It's totally cool. But Mundus Canis, A Dog's World, which has movements dedicated to the Crumb dogs through the years. And, it's a delightfully funny little work. I mean, Crumb, the wonderful thing about Crumb is that he had his own distinct language, and that language expressed the whole gamut of human emotion. Everything is in here and in his own special idiom. But in Mundus Canis, he found a pair of maracas that I happened to own, that I lent to him at one point. For some reason, he needed maracas. I don't remember what it was. Anyway, he loved these maracas. I had gotten them from a Venezuelan maraca maker. Unfortunately, they no longer exist. They were fragile, and one of them fell apart. But the bottom line is, I had these maracas, and George just loved them, and he wanted them for Mundus Canis. So they're in here. They are in here. So I had a very indirect role in helping bridge with their Crumb edition, and I take great pride in that. But that's not the point, because it's just a panorama of superb performances, including from Crumb's late daughter, Anne Crumb, the singer, and Gilbert Kalish and Janda Gaetani and David Starobin, the guitarist. Just an unbelievable love and dedication. The piano duo Quattro Mani. It just goes on and on and on. They are not just great pieces by one of the major forces in 20th century music, but they are great performances of great pieces. And that's really rare for new music, to see it done, hear it done at this level of excellence. And I've got a couple of these things that are autographed. George signed this one. There he is. Just a wonderful, wonderful man, an extraordinary musician, an incredible edition, spearheaded by Becky and David Starobin at Bridge Records. Really amazing. You can buy it all, 21 discs, and you get them individually. You get them in a box, but the box is what they pack it in, not, a big Crumb edition box. They operate on a shoestring. They really do. And George stuck with them for all these years. He graced them with his trust, and they repaid it in spades. So the Crumb edition is an incredibly major thing. And you should support it. I mean, if you want to find, get Star Child, get Black Angels, get A Haunted Landscape, the orchestral pieces, get his American Songbooks. That series is just amazing. His last great flowering of extraordinary music, folk song settings like you've never heard them before. Really just wonderful. I start to cry thinking about it. I really do. It was phenomenal. Also phenomenal, maybe a little more terrifying. Well, Crumb's pretty scary too sometimes. Ancient Voices of Children and the madrigals have their gut-wrenching moments, all that Lorca poetry, that he loved to set. But this is a whole nother thing. The Alan Pedersen Complete Edition on Bis. Now, I accept the fact that Alan Pedersen is not for all tastes. And this much of Pedersen, how many discs is this? It's 17 CDs and 4 DVDs at a very special price, and it had better be. But 17 CDs of Alan Pedersen, this is for people who really enjoyed 2024 so much that they think it might be better if they don't experience 2025. As I always said, if you're looking forward to offing yourself, Pedersen is your guy. And I mean that kind of facetiously, because the fascinating thing about listening to all of his symphonies, which was symphonies numbers 1 through 17, 17 is incomplete, but 1 through 16, let's just say, is that there really is range and variety and of everything, of form, of length and size, of density, of tonal expression, of melody. There's moments of heart-rending beauty. Lovely, lovely melody, a lot of angst and struggle and craziness. And I've been looking at the scores as I've been going through these things. And, it's really kind of interesting. He achieves this unbelievable tension and intensity with orchestras of standard orchestras, standard size. He doesn't use extraordinary and weird instruments. He doesn't use 8 horns and 50 trombones. He doesn't do any of those things. He just sounds like he does. He sounds like he does because of the incredible intricacy of counterpoint and density of thought that runs throughout these works. It's an amazing legacy from a guy who spent most of his life sick and ignored and downtrodden and spat upon, and you can hear the spat in every single work. It is heartrending and brutal music. But the more that you listen to it, the more you feel that Pedersen himself was right when they asked him, why his music was so miserable, what it was about, and he said, just facts. He would say, it's just about the facts. Well, yeah. I mean, I kind of get it. Anyway, and you also get his 2 violin concertos, his viola concerto, which is pretty grim, the concertos for string orchestra, numbers 1 through 3, which are some of the nastiest, ugliest string music you've ever heard in your life. Vox Humana, which is a fabulous vocal work. Also, his choral symphony, The Dead in the Square, which is incredibly intense and wonderful. Symphonic movements, 6 songs, his barefoot songs, which provided the thematic content for a lot of the more melodic symphonic material, and all of his chamber music, of which there's very little, with unbelievable performances. The conductors are Christian Lindberg, Leif Segerstam, and Stig Westerberg, with a bunch of really fine Swedish orchestras, Norrköping, the Nordic Chamber Orchestra, the Swedish Radio Symphony. Difficult music to do, difficult music to play and program. BIS could only do, periodic releases over the years, but they did it. Because BIS is one of those labels. I don't know if this is going to continue now that it's been sold, but they finish what they start, no matter what. And some of the things that they started, these big editions they did of the complete Bach stuff with the Japan Bach Collegium, things that you would never expect, and turned out to be just fabulous. Their Sibelius edition is legendary, really important and wonderful projects, and none more so than this, because Pedersen is unquestionably one of the great Swedish symphonists of the 20th century, maybe one of the great symphonists. A remarkable personality who wrote personal and intense music at a very, very high level of mastery, through thick and thin, and here it all is in a box. So, if you don't want it all at once, I understand, but you should at least sample. You should hear some of it. The difficulty is not so much of idiom. It's not that it is craggy and dissonant and all those things, but it's also very tonal and very beautiful and very easy to follow. Because the ideas are extremely pregnant. They're easy to hear and easy to recall. The problem is emotional. It's music of unremitting emotional intensity, mostly angst. So yeah, you've been warned, but, it's fabulous stuff. Next, we have to do something, don't we, from Australian Eloquence. That fabulous brand of Universal that actually gives a damn about music and issues things that are worth listening to. Yeah, it's so exciting that they exist and that they do these things. Michael Tilson Thomas, the MTT box, the Deutsche Grammophon and Argo recordings. It's the complete Deutsche Grammophon and Argo recordings. There is a big Michael Tilson Thomas box coming out, which I guess we'll put off till 2025. Because I'm still listening to it. It's 80 CDs worth of stuff, a lot of which I haven't heard in a while because it's been out of print. But Michael Tilson Thomas's early recordings on Deutsche Grammophon and his late recordings on Argo are fabulous for all of the interesting and unusual repertoire that they bring to bear, which is the theme of this year's KOLA. You've got some basic things like his Debussy Image, which are gorgeous because he's a fabulous Debussy conductor and always was. But you've got Ives and Ruggles and Piston and William Schumann and Leonard Bernstein and Ingolf Dahl and Morton Feldman. And it's all just marvelous. And you've got Grieg and Schumann and like I said, Debussy, lots of Debussy, which is fabulous. Stravinsky, his Stravinsky is incomparable. Really, really first-rate stuff. Absolutely. Well, a lot of, Tangazzo, remember, Mexican and Latin American things. He was a wonderful generalist conductor with an extraordinary range of repertoire. And a lot of it is contained in this extremely beautiful 14 CD box on Deutsche Grammophon from Australian Eloquence. So go for it. Then we've got a couple discs. Now we're almost getting there. 4 to go. A couple discs of creative programming and major discoveries. 2 discs of those, which I think are really kind of amazing, some of which are more recent than others in terms of when we've spoken about them. This disc, reference recordings, Brahms reimagined. People buy reference recordings because they think the sound is amazing, and it usually is. But sometimes the repertoire is amazing too. In fact, often it is. There's some really, really good programming going on. And this is a concept disc that really, really worked. Orchestrations of music by Brahms. The best known is Schoenberg's arrangement of the piano quartet in G minor, which is just fantastically bizarre and fun to listen to. And it's very, very well played here by Michael Stern and the Kansas City Symphony. It's a very good orchestra, wonderfully, wonderfully recorded. Now, again, people say it best ever. It's the Kansas City Symphony. Oh, we've got all these things with like the Berlin Philharmonic and all these famous orchestras. Well, yeah, the hell with them all, because they don't really care about issuing physical product or promoting it. Yeah, the Berlin Philharmonic has its own digital concert hall now thing, which a lot of people subscribe to. But that's what's happening on the day. The idea of recordings as a special example in and of themselves, a legitimate art form and medium for enjoying music and a way to experience music differently from the way you do in the concert hall. I mean, I think that's such a wonderful and right now dying art form. But every so often something comes along that revivifies your hope in humanity, and this is one of them. The most amazing thing here are the 11 chorale preludes, which were for organ. It's Opus 122, orchestrated by Virgil Thompson, the perfect guy to do it. Absolutely. I mean, it's wonderful. There's also this little piece, Black Swan for orchestra, after the intermezzo in A major, Opus 118, number 2, orchestrated by Bright Sheng. Really a wonderful, wonderful disc by a composer who we all thought we knew. And that's the joy of things, projects like this, when they're done well, when the concept works. They could tell us wonderful new things about composers who we thought who've been taken for granted all of these years, and who wrote things that still are not. I mean, nobody knows his chorale preludes for organ. There's still stuff out there by major composers, and it only takes a little bit of imagination and know-how and love and technical aplomb to bring it to our attention. After that, we have, Castelnuovo Tedesco string quartets. Now, I did a whole video about this recently, so I don't have to redo it, with the Quartetto Adorno, which I think is hilarious because the Quartetto Adorno is named after Theodore Adorno, the fabulously dense and grumpy, musicologist who I'm sure would have detested most of the music on the disc. I mean, Adornians may disagree, since they're always willing to tell us what he would have thought, because nobody knows what he did think, because it was impenetrable. But, these are great pieces. This is the chamber music discovery of the year. Absolutely! It's on Naxos. It's gorgeously recorded. These are 3 serious but eminently approachable, quasi-programmatic, charming, melodic, colorful, just amazing. And all of you who went and listened to them after I did the original video just came back. And one person said they thought they were like shallow and uninteresting, but so is the person who said that. Ha! No, they were great. And you all enjoyed them, and you should continue to enjoy them, and the rest of the universe must enjoy them. This is a real find. Just delicious, fabulous, joyful music for the most part, nostalgic sometimes, and deeply felt, really deeply felt. And if the feelings that he felt deeply were mostly feelings of joy and awareness of beauty and nature, well, good for him and for us. Oh, yeah. Next, this is actually sitting in the other room, but it is our one, sort of standard repertoire choice of the year, and really a wonderful disc. It just keeps getting better with time. Stuart Goodyear doing Prokofiev Piano Concertos 2 and 3 and the Sonata number 7 on Orchid Classics. Oh my gosh, is that a beautiful, beautiful disc of music that everybody seems to be doing. The second piano concerto in particular was a rarity. it was a real rarity when I was growing up. I mean, there was like the Supraphon recording with Andrew, which was wonderful, and it was in the collection of complete Prokofiev concertos by those people who were doing them. But it never got time of day. Now it's like as popular as the third, maybe more so. I think it's the better work between the two. It's an extraordinary piece, but to do it as well as Goodyear does, and he's helped in no small measure by the BBC Symphony under Andrew Litton, who is a stunning, fabulous, Russian music guy, who did his own wonderful Prokofiev cycle, and really, really an unusually excellent, fabulous disc. And Stuart Goodyear is a Canadian pianist. He's a tremendous artist. You may recall his amazing transcription of the complete Tchaikovsky Nutcracker, which I think is one of the greatest recordings ever. We may get back to it now that I've mentioned it. I mean, he's done wonderful discs. He's done all the Beethoven sonatas and all the usual things too. But he really is an artist of great individuality and sensitivity, and he's managed to find an outlet that will record him, and he takes that task, I think, very, very seriously. Most, if not all, of the discs that he's released have been worthy of the best of what's going on in the world of piano playing today. And so his Prokofiev concertos were just a breath of fresh air in the usually stale and fusty, oh God, just another recording of the usual stuff department. So that goes on the list. And last but not least, our disc of the year, fanfare. Wait a minute, we can do a fanfare. I'm going to do a fanfare. I mean, I know that some of you will, hate when I sing these fanfares, so we'll do it on my gizmo here. How's that for a fanfare? Oh my God. Yeah, here it is, the disc of the year. Let me wrap up my kazoo. I always take care of my musical instruments first. Yeah, believe it or not, Supraphon is the disc of the year on Naxos. His Fantasia Symphonica. This is a real find, folks. I keep trying to explain to people, no one's going to pay attention to Franz von Suppe because everyone thinks they don't need to. He was a light music composer, an operetta composer, right? He wrote a few nice overtures. They were cute and charming. Maybe a little bit of choral music here and there. Occasionally people pay attention to. But this is a major 1859 symphony. He didn't call it a symphony. Why didn't he call it a symphony? Well, because it has things like harps and percussion, and tam-tam, and all kinds of nifty things going off on it, in it. And gorgeous melodies, fabulously scored, luscious orchestration. And it's so not what a German symphony is supposed to be, which is austere and serious and heavy and boring in this period. I mean, because we're talking about the interregnum between Mendelssohn and Schumann and then Brahms, who was going to pop up about, a dozen years later, or 10 years later, something like that, somewhere in the 1860s. But his first symphony would finally show up and supposedly change the universe of the German symphony. Of course, it didn't. We only say that because we have the virtue of hindsight. We are Monday morning quarterbacks, replaying music history and rewriting it in the way that pleases us. But there were beautiful works being written in this period, by a multitude of composers. Kalavoda, for example, was fabulous, a few others. But this is one of the great musical finds in the history of German symphonic music, if only people would let it be. Because it shows an effortless mastery, a command of form, of orchestration, a fund of melody, all the things we look for in a great work. But for various political or whatever reasons, would be denied Suppe. This was just discovered in the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris or someplace like that, and edited for performance by Ola Rudner, the conductor here, who is excellent, with the Tonkünstler Orchestra on Naxos. And this is the find of the year of interesting repertoire. I am telling you, I am not kidding. I believe you me. It will, well, maybe if it won't change your life, it'll give you 31 minutes and 56 seconds of absolutely fantastic fantastic and enjoyable music. It will give you pleasure. It will take you away from your drab existence. It does all of those things. It's just a wonderful, wonderful work and a joy to discover, and something that, under normal circumstances, you'd have to wait for your local orchestra to do it. How many years have you got left? Seriously. Thank God this thing is out, and I hope it gets more recordings and some other people pick it up, and maybe we'll get to hear it live some year. It's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's my disc of the year. So keep on listening, friends. Thank you for joining me for the KOLA Awards 2024. I look forward to more fun stuff in 2025. Take care.